And now we are joined by Saint Super Bowl champion Jermon Bushrod. Jermon, there's a lot to watch during this training camp. Let's start with the quarterback position. Obviously, Derek Carr's first training camp down here in New Orleans. What's the biggest step this offense needs to take during camp?
I think for Derek Carr being the new leader that's under center, I think for him to continue to be the reliable and durable quarterback that he's been in the past is going to be key, really just for us at that position, because obviously since Drew's departure, it's been a little up and a little bit down. So hopefully that we get a guy that can continue to come in there and play the way that he's played in the past. But now you got a bunch of new teammates, right? So he has to come in there and earn the respect. He's done a good job of that in OTAs and minicamp. Now he has to come back here and do it in training camp. So I'm just excited to see how he just embraces the Who Dat Nation, the heat, because it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. How's he going to deal with that? It's a little bit different than Las Vegas, but I'm excited to see how he just really gets along with the teammates. From what I've seen, he looks like a very personable guy and a quarterback that a bunch of guys will rally around.
Yeah, one thing we always know for sure heading into Saints training camp, it will be hot. Michael Thomas said during OTAs that he would be ready to go full speed at training camp. What's the goal for him during these next few weeks? Is it simply developing more chemistry with Carr?
Well, Saints fans and Michael Thomas for himself, I guess you could say, we want that old thing back. The last 3 years for him have been a little tough, with no 2021 campaign. You see a guy who's had only 600 yards and almost 60 catches the last 3 years. So the goal is to be available for Mike. I think that's big for him because he's such a physical route runner who does rely so much on his upper body, his physicality, but his ankles, his feet, everything needs to work properly so that he can make those breaks, get in and out, and create that separation that he's been doing since he's coming to the league. He's going to be a big asset, not just for the Saints, but for Derek Carr as well. A guy who can really work the middle of the field. He can take it down the field and he can catch it on the insides as well. So, like I said, he's going to be a huge asset for Derek Carr. And chemistry is all about repetitions, right? It's repetitions in that relationship. And the more reps that you can have with your quarterback and wide receiver one, I think the better the bond will be.
And sticking on the offensive side of the ball, obviously you played left tackle. Injuries plagued Trevor Penning his rookie year, right? But is he the definite starter there?
I can't say that he's the definite starter, not right now. But I do think that obviously we all want him to win the spot. That's why that's why you draft him with the first pick in the draft last year. When you make that type of investment, you want him to be a key contributor to your team. I just think he needs to continue to develop, especially in the pass game. In the run game, I like what I've seen. But he, as long as he doesn't lose that nastiness that he plays with and cleans that his pass protection up, I think he'll be just fine. Under the leadership of Doug Marrone, and now you got Jari Evans there, who's a good friend. I believe that they'll get everything straight with him as long as his health. Again, availability is going to be the key. I mean, that's going to probably pop up day in and day out when you're out here reporting on the Saints. It's like, can these guys be on the field? And that's important. So, James Hurst is a guy who's going to come in and obviously compete for that left tackle spot. But listen, at the end of the day, he is such the ultimate pro and he's such a luxury to have on the offensive line. I'm really excited just to see the growth of Penning, and Hurst is somebody you can put on the left side, the right side, inside, outside, put him at tight end. So he's a luxury to have, but it's Penning's spot to go out there and win.
Another position battle that will play out at the cornerback spot opposite Marshawn Lattimore. You have either Paulson Adebo or Alontae Taylor, both very talented. Who wins that one?
It's a tough one. It's going to be another battle, probably the battle to really watch on the defensive side of the ball. But first off, I mean, what a great position for the New Orleans Saints to be in, that defense and the secondary. You got two young corners, both have really good measurables as far as the cornerback position. They're tall, they're long. That's the type of things that you want in that cornerback position. And both of them are physical. They're playmakers. They go and get the ball. I mean, if Adebo can get back to his 2021 self, that rookie season, I believe it's kind of his spot. But just listening to Alontae Taylor, his interviews, the way he carries himself on the field, this is not a guy that's going to back down. It's just really good old competition. At the end of the day, it's going to bring out the best in us. And what good competition does, it forces players to always be quote unquote on. It forces you to be available, because you want that spot. That spot, once you grasp that spot, you don't ever want to let it go. I've been there before. I've had to come in and compete, and when you get it, you get a taste of that. You don't want to let it go. Yeah, so literally, let's let the best man win. Like I said, I think the Saints are in a really good position right now. But we're going to need both of those guys because you know how this NFL season is.
Yeah, both of those guys so talented and so competitive. Can't wait to watch that one play out. Which rookies, though, really need to have an impressive showing during these next 2 weeks?
I'm going with the first two picks. I want to see Brian Breesy, and I like this Isaiah Foskey kid. He's long. He uses his hands really well. If you look at Brian Breesy, you just kind of read the book on him. He uses his hands really well. And obviously, these guys are really getting coached up really good here at the college level. But then when you bring them in and you have a Cam Jordan, a guy who plays with such power and such force in his hands, does a really good job of working the edge. You look at Foskey play, most of his success in college came using his hands, working edges. So I'm really excited to see how these two college defensive linemen can really transition over to the pro level. Because over the last few years, we've invested a lot of draft capital into the defensive side, and you want to see a guy who can come in and make an impact now. It would be great for one of these two to do that. But I think that they're both very hungry. I think they're both really good technicians, and I think it's a really good opportunity for both of these guys. One, being that we did lose a couple key pieces in the middle of the defense, for these guys for Breesy to come in and make an impact, and Foskey being able to do his thing on the edge.
And both of those guys coming from premier college football programs when you talk about Clemson and Notre Dame. But when it comes down to figuring out the final 53-man roster, who's on the bubble, whose spot depends on them having a great camp and preseason.
I'm going to go back actually to the 2021 draft. I'm going to go with the last two draft picks with Kawan Baker and Landon Young. These guys at that round 6 or round 7 draft position, you're not looked at to come in and make a significant impact. If you get thrown out there, most likely it's because of injury or some unfortunate event with your team. But this is their third season. This is a make or break type of season for both of these guys. How are you going to come into training camp and prove to these coaches that I can add value to this team, whether it's on special teams, whether it's having an opportunity to be a big tight end, Landon Young? How are we going to step up? How are we going to show these guys that I can play either left or right side on the offensive line, right? How am I going to show, the wide receiver coach that I'm able to get in and out the cuts, being where the quarterback needs me to be? So just to kind of hit on those two guys, but one that really kind of sticks out to me is Tano Passanio. Again, you draft Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame last year. You got Peyton Turner. I believe those two guys are going to be fighting it out. But then you got Carl Granderson, who's statistically coming off his best year. You got Cam Jordan, who's obviously no young spry chicken anymore, but this is a guy who is extremely physical, extremely smart, and has a great motor and continues to have success. I think it's going to be a good camp. I mean, there's so many competitions and so many different points that we're going to be able to kind of highlight come training camp time. But those are the three I kind of have my eyes on.
All right, Jermon, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to more of your insight during the preseason.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.